on Chalamish. I wanted to teach people about history and why it is important. Well, history is in my heart. I mean, it's something that I really love. It's something that I regularly read about and imagine. I guess it got into me that a lot of people could do better if they knew more about it, and that it could really affect people's decisions knowing that others before them had to go through similar choices. And some choices led to disasters and some led to greatness. I think that it showed me that I will need to change my expectations and how I think of things as I go through them. And it certainly made me realize that you can't just insist on going the same path if it becomes too rocky. Sometimes you need to take a different trail. So there's this medieval monk, and he enters his local library. He finds a book filled with strange symbols and written in a foreign language. Doesn't really seem important, he doesn't understand it. He says, sure, I could use this, and turns it into scrap paper. This isn't a joke, this is history. That book was written by Archimedes, one of the greatest mathematicians in history. And in that book, he wrote the first written records of calculus, something that would not be rediscovered almost 2,000 years later by Sir Isaac Newton. So history is filled with this stuff, and all of these amazing stories that makes you think, what if? And the greatest story of all is that of experience. History is filled with the experiences of billions of people across thousands of years. And I think that if we tap into that knowledge, it's really could do so much for us. So when I was asked for my 20 Time project to do something to help my community, I thought, okay, how am I going to use history? Something that I really like. So I created a YouTube channel. And my intention was to upload videos to it where I will talk about specific events and why they still matter to us today. Okay. So this didn't really go out as well as I planned. It turned out to be much harder to make the videos than what I expected. I mean, usually even if I'll look like straight into the camera, it will look as if I'm looking up to the sky when I check into it later. And it's quite weird talking to a wall, especially when you know that that wall is looking right back at you, basically. So I had some difficulties. Eventually, my older brother gave me advice that I create a sort of podcast. I will have images instead of myself filming it, and I'll have my voice as a background explaining what's going on. This helped me a lot, and I was able to get the first video across. But sadly, I was sort of dragging my feet after that, and I didn't really get anything beyond that. And it didn't really help when I noticed that it had only 4 views when I looked back to it. So I was really frustrated, and my first instinct was close the window and go to YouTube and watch the video of another guy. So I watched that video, had hundreds of thousands of views. And I kind of hated that guy. But it was also a bit hard to hate him. I mean, I liked his videos. So I was okay with it in the end. I mean, even though my original idea of going to the internet and becoming the next Carl Sagan or Neil deGrasse Tyson, there are other people out there doing similar stuff, and people are interested. Another difficulty that I ran into was the creation of an interview. In reality, I was practically ignoring it up till now. It seemed very awkward to try to just contact a complete stranger, but eventually I just had to get it going, so I found this one historian that I really admired, and he doesn't even live that far. So I sent to him an email. He never replied. Eventually I found this other guy who I could interview. The only reason why I found him was because he was a relative. So I interviewed him, which was great. I mean, he's a great guy. I really respect him. The interview was in Hebrew, so yeah. And it was in the living room, so if you listen to it right now, I mean, you could hear my parents interject all the time trying to talk to him. But it was a great help, and even though my own interview was in a foreign language, it was still really great. Okay. So when I look back at what I learned from all of this, there was quite a lot: how to make an interview, how to create a video, how to not read through the entire project, because that was really what I wanted when I did it. I love history, and when I made this project, instead of creating videos as I should have, I was spending most of my time just reading books, which was certainly more comfortable. I liked it more. But I still am proud of the stuff that I have learned with my class and at home. So even though the project has already ended, I do hope to continue this as I go on. So anyways, what do I hope that you get out of this as an audience? History is a great thing. You could learn a lot about it, and there's a lot of people out there who want others to share their passions about it. Oh, and FYI, the video, if all of you watch it, it would like quadruple my numbers. So it's called The Truth of the Armenian Genocide. I find it difficult to find it even when I try to. So you might want to add my name, Ron Chalamish, at the end of that. That usually helps. Thank you. Questions? Yes.
Since there is so much history that is available, I'm just curious about your original vision. What were you trying to say about history that maybe isn't being said?
Yes. Well, usually when I learn history, it's actually outside of school. And that's because back when I lived in Israel, I didn't really like my history classes. They were really boring. So I'd usually read at home. And I found really a treasure trove of information that really got me interested in it. And I find that even though a lot of people learn history in the classroom, they might learn less outside of it, as I did. So that was my hope. Okay. Yes?
Ron, why did you decide to start with the Armenian genocide?
Well, it wasn't my first intention, but then I found out that 101st anniversary was coming up, and I was sort of rushing to get to it. And it was that sort of motivation that actually allowed me to get the first video across, even though that was like really late in the evening of that same day. So even that was a bit on the ropes. Yeah.
Are you going to keep on making videos?
I certainly do hope so. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there which I want to delve into. Yes?
So to follow up, if you could snap your fingers and make 4 more videos where you were guaranteed 100,000 views in the first week, what would be the next 3 videos you would make?
Well, one of them could be about Christopher Columbus and our view of these great people. And why we really need to study the truth behind every single story of a person who we deem as great. I could also do about the effects of war across multiple cultures, how different people view it, and how that could affect how much war they would go into. What else? There could also be like the difference of ideology, of individualism, and more of a society-based government, and also the difference, like how civilizations, differences between nomadic groups and more civilized, what we deem as more civilized groups, and how actually not all nomadic groups were more primitive, but a lot of times even more advanced, or just people from civilized groups who actually escaped to the nomadic life because they liked it more. So that's certainly interesting things. Yes?
So how would you promote your channel when it gets more material in that? And did you learn anything from the fellow who had the 100,000 hits that you enjoyed his videos?
Well, I always watch his videos, even before. What was your first question?
The first one is how would you promote your channel?
Okay,
so
yes.
you come up from Florida, wherever you're going?
I do not use social media well. I mean, the closest thing that I use to social media is checking my email from time to time. So I guess I'll just try to go on YouTube channels of other people's videos and say, I like your stuff. I did something similar. Maybe you could give me your opinion on it, and I could get into that viewer base as well, while respecting his own. Sriza?
Well, you're certainly a very funny guy. I didn't know how funny you are. So maybe you could combine humor with your videos, and you might get a few more views.
Yeah. Yes?
What inspiration did you take from your interview with your relative?
Yes. Well, he was a high school teacher. Now he's a principal, actually. And his idea of history was that it doesn't repeat itself, but that it provides us to learn about ideas, to think how this affects us, or why it's important, and what we would have done in that situation. So instead of just thinking, okay, it's just a continuous thing that repeats itself as it's usually taught, really get into the ideas, not just the events or just one view that it repeats itself. Okay. Yes?
You know, it's a shame that I did not know that you were working on this, because in class we were working on something very similar with the 7th grade. And we did a 5-minute video, but had tons of mistakes and errors, and the sound was not great, but the work of the kids was amazing. So I would like to know if you will be willing next year to work with us in the classroom. It will be really enriching for us.
It'll be really interesting, yeah.
I was wondering if you would be, have you ever, like it's 2 questions, have you ever come across someone else who shares the interest that you share and can kind of talk shop with you about the different historical questions that you think about? And then also, would you be interested in having a collaborator, somebody who could maybe help with the filming and the social media presence and join you in this project?
I found that when my brother gave me like this one advice, but that really helped me a lot, I found. So I do think that having a second person there to keep you on track, just your head out of the books, could really help. And as for your first question, I have found a few people who do share my passion for history. We usually would complain about different views, but we will always respect each other's opinions, I find. And that's like very interesting, because even though we have different ideas, we could agree on the facts, and we could also agree that those people had different ideas, and that's what's led to this split. So, yeah. Right?
Okay.
Thank you.